Hey, DC family, we are so excited that you are a part of this Wednesday night or midweek service with us for our adults. We know that you are ready to be back inside of this building, and we can't wait for you to be back in here on Wednesday nights. We're really trying to make sure that our students are taken care of, and because of social distancing and everything that's taking place right now, we are giving them the opportunity to be able to use this facility because they can space out and still put all the students in here. I believe last week they had right at around 200 or so students that were a part of their one-night service, and it's really hard for them to practice social distancing when they're over in the other building. So we're allowing them to be in here, but hopefully soon we're going to allow you to be able to be back in here with us. I have in here right now, I'm just counting, we have 10 of our student interns that are a part of our summer internship program. All of these guys and girls, they are currently, they are in high school or they just graduated high school, and we're excited for them to be a part. In fact, guys, won't you give a hand clap right now? Come on. It's been awesome to be able to have interns here to help us out and to be able to learn. In all seriousness, we appreciate you guys for being a part and, just getting to learn a little bit about ministry and just see if this is something that maybe down the road that God has called you to, and just giving up your time and your summer. You could be in a pool right now or at the beach or wherever, but you're here. And we're excited about it. So I want to jump right into this. I think this is so important right now. We're living in a really, really, really crazy season in life. 2020 has been one of those years that you don't want to remember, but you also won't be able to forget. It's one of those things that you look at now. One day, we're going to look back at this year, and we're going to be able to remember some of the things that have happened, that have taken place, and just be amazed that we were able to be a part of it. I still think about the fact, and I can remember exactly where I was when 9/11 took place. I remember the specific place I was at. I can remember where I watched that thing happen. There are certain moments in time. I can remember where I was at when I watched the space shuttle explode. I remember exactly where I was at and exactly what I was doing. And I just have a feeling that what we've had to deal with this year so far, just through the first 6 months of 2020, that there are going to be a lot of you that are going to remember exactly where you were when some of these events happened and what took place. We went straight into the year and everything looked like it was going to be fine, and then the coronavirus took off, and we watched the churches shut down. We shut down for eight or nine consecutive Sundays, which is unheard of, and we're still dealing with that today. So if you're watching this further along, we're still in the middle of social distancing and limited seating and things like that are taking place right now. And just when we thought coronavirus wasn't enough, then we dealt with the issue that just took place with the African American man that was killed by a police officer, and now the whole U.S. is in an uproar over something so vicious that happened, and I think that it's important in the middle of all of this, because essentially what's happening right now, we're in the middle of a waiting game. When the coronavirus took off and everything started and this pandemic hit us, there was the initial response of, what do we do now? And now we're simply in the middle of that. We're in the waiting game of, when does it end? What's next? How long is this going to go for? And now that this new thing has come on and the world, or the U.S. at least, is trying to comprehend and understand where to go from here, and the initial shock of it has hit us, and we're in the middle of it. We're in a strategic moment in U.S. history, and now to be able to figure out, where do we go from here on this situation, dealing with the abuse of the police officer and the things that have taken place. Now we're in the waiting game for that, of what do we do next. And I know people are protesting and things that are going on right now, but it's a waiting game, because We don't know where it's going to go from here. We don't know what the next step really is. We know what we would like it to be or what we want it to be, but we don't necessarily know what that next thing is. And I think it's important to be able to understand the way that God works in the waiting period in our life. Because every single one of us, and I'm from you guys that are watching us right now, a part of this service, that are sitting in your home, or maybe you're out somewhere right now with your family, you're riding down the road. I hope you're not, holding your phone in front of you and watching this, but you're maybe watching it in a vehicle right now, or even you guys that are sitting in here inside the building with me. Every single one of us are going to have to live at some point inside of a waiting period. You're going to have to wait on something. And there's nothing wrong with waiting, but I think what happens in the middle of waiting is, I think our tendency is to automatically equate waiting with being lazy. We think that if we're not moving in a certain direction constantly, if we're not doing constantly, if we're not going to the next constantly, that it's just simply being lazy and we're not doing anything. But I want to read this to you in one of my favorite books of the Bible. I get a couple of the most famous for me moments that take place in the Old Testament is in the book of Isaiah. And in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31, it says, "Yet those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength." And then it goes on to say they will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary. When you think about waiting like this, it doesn't seem so bad. There are going to be moments in our lives where we're going to have to understand that God has strategically placed us in a period in our lives, or maybe it's in our culture, or maybe it's just in the world in general, where we're going to find ourselves playing the waiting game. And I want to encourage you that if you're in the middle of the waiting game right now, that this is the key. And I don't have this to be able to show to you with our slides behind us, and you won't be able to read this on a screen or anything like that. But you're going to find the weight, the W-E-I-G-H-T, the weight of God, when you're in the wait with God, the W-A-I-T. You'll find the W-E-I-G-H-T, the weight of God, when God settles down in a situation, in a moment. In the Bible, the Hebrew word is kabod for the weightiness, the glory, or the weightiness of God. But you'll find that happening most of the time in your life when you find yourself in the wait, the W-A-I-T, with God. When you're in between something that you were just at, but you're not at the thing that you're trying to get to. Sometimes God places us in the middle. We feel like we're stuck in the middle, but a lot of times in the middle is where, while we're waiting for God, God is providing His weight, His W-E-I-G-H-T, into our lives to help us to be able to understand exactly what's taking place. I think it's important for us to understand that a lot of times the things that God is trying to do in our lives, the things that we're asking God to change, the things that we're praying and seeking God over, the moments in our lives when we find ourselves just at a need, we have a specific need that we're wanting God to do in our lives. We used to sing a song, I remember back, being a teenager, they would say, "He may not come when you want Him, but He'll be there right on time." And that's a great song to sing in theory, because we know that God is an on-time God. But it's so hard for us to be able to just wait for something to take place in our life. I talked about this part a little bit several years ago in here. In fact, standing over in the other building on a Wednesday night. We live in a culture where we don't like to wait. At one time, I remember being a kid, and a lot of you can attest to this, and you can remember this, but I remember popping popcorn when I was a really, really, really young kid. I remember my mom popping popcorn on top of the oven. I remember when it used to come, you guys don't know this, but it used to come inside of a tin pan that had an aluminum foil seal over it, and my mom would stick it on top of the oven, And she would turn it on, and it took 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes, whatever it was, to pop. And the bag, the aluminum on top of the pan would swell as the popcorn popped. And when it, got fully extended out, or as much as it could swell, that meant the popcorn was ready. And for us, when I was really young kid, that was great because we liked popcorn, and, it was an easy way to be able to fix it at home. And then somebody came out with the idea of taking a microwave and creating a bag that they put popcorn and the butter and everything in, and you stick it in a microwave and you hit 5 minutes. And in 5 minutes, you could have popcorn. And when that came out, when I was still a younger kid, I remember it coming out and I was like, oh my gosh, we can have popcorn in 5 minutes instead of it taking however many minutes it was. And then all of a sudden, it became too long to be able to eat popcorn in 5 minutes, so they came out with a bag that you could pop in 4 minutes. And then they came out with a bag you could pop in 3 minutes. Why? Because they figured out that we have a society that doesn't like to wait. You know how I know I don't like to wait? I go to a fast food restaurant, and I get upset because I sit in a line for more than 3 minutes. Unless it's Chick-fil-A. All right? If it's Chick-fil-A and it takes too long, it just means that they already know what's in my future and they're preparing me for it, and they're helping me to avoid a car wreck or something like that by keeping me in line. And so I'm completely fine with it, okay? It's God's chicken, all right? So, but, we don't like to wait. We don't like the idea of having to wait. We don't like the idea of being suspended in a moment in time where we feel like nothing is happening, or at least we're not seeing the results that we would like to see. But we have to know that we serve a God that sees far beyond what we want, that quick pleasure that we're looking for, that quick response that we're looking for, that initial thing where we believe that God's just going to step in and He's going to just poof, He's just going to do it right then. And you know what? There are going to be times in your life, like there were, and there have been in mine, and there will be in mine in the future, where God shows up like that, where God, it just almost feels like He just snapped His finger, and that thing that I was needing or asking, that it just happens right there in front of me. But there are going to be probably more times that we're going to deal with in our lives where we're going to find ourselves waiting for God to show up and make something happen. And so I want to encourage you that if you find yourself in the middle of a waiting game, if you find yourself in the middle of a situation or a scenario where, I don't really know what's next. I know that there is a next, but I don't know what, to me, it's not so, it's worse for me to not know how I'm going to get to the next than it is to not know what the next is. I need to know how I'm going to get there. I want to know, and I want to be able to understand why I am where I am. And God just simply makes sure that we understand that He's not just simply looking out for my quick response pleasure. He's not looking out for what helps me right there in the moment, what makes me feel better, because God is orchestrating an entire planet. He is orchestrating the lives, the wants, the desires, the needs of an entire planet. And sometimes the things that we're wanting Him to do in our lives, it's not that He's saying no. I think what's important, I heard someone say a while back, not getting an immediate response from God is not no. That's not God's way of saying no. Because He didn't show up 15 minutes after our prayer, or 15 days after our prayer, or 15 months after our prayer does not mean that God is saying, no, you don't need that. He just, that could be His way of saying, I just need you to wait right now because I know what you need better than you do. And I want to encourage you right now, wherever you are, if you find yourself, maybe you haven't even touched the waiting game yet. Maybe you're nowhere near it and you don't even know what I'm talking about right now. I promise you, if you live on this earth long enough, you're going to find out what it means to have to wait. Maybe you're sitting in the middle of the waiting game right now. Maybe you've been here for just a few days or a few weeks or a few months or even a few years. Where do I go next, God? Or maybe you just came out of the waiting game and God has come through and He's done that thing that you've been asking for. Wherever you're at right now, I promise you this. I may not can tell you when your next waiting game is going to start. I may not can tell you when it's going to end or what it's going to look like in the end. But I promise I can tell you this. No matter where you are right now in your waiting game, God's there also. And all you have to do is simply lean in on Him. We cannot get to the place where we decide that, well, if I'm going to have to wait, then I'm just going to kind of pull away, or I'm going to retract for a bit. I'm going to step away for a little while. I'm going to get away. And I think sometimes that may be what's happening right now with a lot of people that are, I know there are people that are fearful of coming back to church right now. Maybe it's just being around so many people at one time that you're really struggling with the concept of walking back inside of a building where there are a lot of people at, and you know that you may have to avoid the front hugger or the close talker or that person that just wants to run straight up on you, and they want to have faces 6 inches from each other and talk about how awesome it is to see you again. Some of you may be fearful of that, and I understand that. Some of you may be dealing with some type of illness right now, or maybe you're more susceptible to this sickness, and just for your own personal benefit, your own personal health reasons, you're staying away from church. And if it's either one of those, we understand. We want you to watch online. We want you to be a part of our online campus because God is moving in it, just like He's moving inside of this building right now. But maybe there's some of you right now that are watching and you haven't made it back yet because now you feel like you've been inside of a waiting game so long, because that's essentially what we've been doing. We're waiting on all of this to end so that we can get back to normal life. Can I tell you that normal life does not exist anymore? It doesn't exist. God is moving, wants to move in your life. He wants to do things in you. He wants to do things through you. But I'm encouraging you that right now, in the middle of a waiting period where you don't know what tomorrow holds and you don't know what it's going to look like, when are they going to open this back up? When are they going to do this? When is this going to happen? You're stuck in this waiting period. God said, while you're waiting, wait in the right places. Get back into my house. I know that you can hear God speak to you in your living room, on your couch, laying in your bed, watching our Sunday services online, or even this service right now. I know that God can do that, because to say that God can't means that He's not God. But I want to encourage you that you don't have to wait anymore. You don't have to wait to come back. You don't have to wait to be able to be back inside of this place. If you're going to wait, wait in the right places. I think it's important to be inside of God's house, to come back in and be able to experience God's presence inside of His church again. And maybe you go to a different church. Go back to your church. Take that step. Don't get so comfortable in where you are that you forget of where you used to be and what God's brought you from and to. So I want to encourage you right now, be at church Sunday, somewhere. Go back to your church. If you just stumbled across this, DC family, man, get back inside of God's house. We want you to be inside of this building with us. We want to see your hands lifted up again. I promise you, we're going to practice to the best of our ability social distancing. We're going to try to keep you as safe as absolutely possible. We're taking measures and going beyond on some things to make sure that you're safe because we want you here and we know you need to be here. So I want to encourage you guys in this moment right now, in the waiting period with God, don't forget that's when His weight, His W-E-I-G-H-T, when it shows up in our lives, and it does things that are amazing, because when God shows up, everything and anything is possible. I'm going to pray over you before we close out this night and hope that we see you here Sunday morning. Unless you're sick, of course, if you have some type of illness that's stopping you or you're just fearful right now, we understand that. But for all of you that are just simply waiting right now, it's time to be back in God's house. I want to speak this prayer over you. Father, I thank you for every amazing person, couple, family, husband, wife, male, female, son, daughter, whatever it is that is watching right now. God, I speak over their life right now that if they're in the middle of a waiting period, God, that you would provide the strength that they need to be able to continue, to be able to be strong, God, and that your weight, your W-E-I-G-H-T, would show up in our lives. God, I ask you right now I speak peace over every home, over every family that is still struggling right now from the coronavirus things that are still taking place across our nation. God, those that are still dealing right now with everything that's happening inside of our African American communities and the things that are taking place, God, I speak peace, Father. I speak comfort that only comes from you, God, because we know we know that when you're involved, that everything is possible. God, I thank you for every amazing person that is watching right now. And Father, we can't wait to see them back inside of this building. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, listen, guys, we were so excited that you were a part of this service with us tonight, this short teaching, and for all of these interns that have sat in here with me and listened to me today. And we want to encourage you that if you're a giver here at DC, and this is your normal time that you can give online. You can give through Facebook. There will be a link, or you can give on our app at DC Saraland. You can give on our website, destinationchurch.tv. We're allowing you in every single way to be able to be a part of giving and making sure that we are presenting the gospel and that we're doing incredible things. In fact, let me tell you how amazing it is. Tomorrow morning at some point, we're going to be going out and delivering 200 frozen food boxes to our communities, just to simply show people that their church cares about them. Thank you for helping us and being a part of this, because it's only through you that all of these things are possible. Hey, if nobody's told you today, you are awesome, and we cannot wait to see you with us this Sunday.